Have you ever felt that there are Marian dates the world has forgotten? Have you noticed how some apparitions remain in the shadows of the more famous ones? Dear brothers and sisters, August 19th is not an ordinary day. It's a date sealed with heaven's urgency, marked by a love so profound that it rewrote history itself. This isn't May 13th or October 13th, those dates everyone recognizes when we speak of Fatima. This is a day that rarely appears in processions, seldom gets mentioned in sermons, and many devoted Catholics don't even know exists. Yet those who discover it understand something powerful. This isn't just another page on the calendar. It's a moment of grace that can completely shift the spiritual direction of a life. If you believe in the wisdom and intercession of Our Lady of Fatima, write in the comments, "Mary of Fatima, intercede for me." Your faith helps this message reach more hearts that need to hear it. But why should August 19th matter to you? Why did Padre Pio himself consider forgotten Marian dates like this to be spiritual gold mines? Opportunities when heaven opens its treasury of graces in ways that can transform everything. Here's what most people don't realize. While the world celebrated the famous apparitions of Fatima, something extraordinary happened on August 19th, 1917, something that carries a special blessing for anyone who discovers its secret. It was an apparition born from the faithfulness of 3 children who chose suffering over betrayal. An apparition that came about because heaven itself wanted to reward courage and keep a sacred promise. You see, this date holds what I call the compensation blessing. When the world tried to stop God's message, heaven responded with something even more powerful. When human authorities attempted to silence divine truth, Mary herself stepped forward to ensure her children wouldn't be forgotten. And here's the remarkable part. Padre Pio, though he never set foot in Fatima, carried the same spiritual fire that burned in those Portuguese fields. He understood something crucial about dates like August 19th. He knew they weren't historical curiosities or religious footnotes. They were doorways, sacred moments when the veil between heaven and earth grows thin, and graces flow like rivers for those who know how to receive them. The saint from San Giovanni Rotondo would often say, "The rosary is the weapon for these times." If people knew the power it contains, they would never let it go. He also warned, "There's no day without temptation, no day without struggle, but whoever hides under Mary's mantle will never be defeated." For Padre Pio, Marian dates like this couldn't be ignored. They were heaven's invitations to receive graces that God wanted to pour out in special ways. He recommended that on such days, people should unite prayer and sacrifice in concrete ways, with gestures that would mark both soul and home. This is why today, I'm going to share with you the 3 prayers you need to make on August 19th, not because they're magic formulas, but because they align your heart with the same grace Mary wanted to give the world over a century ago. These prayers have opened doors that seemed permanently closed. They've brought healing where there was only pain. They've restored hope where despair had taken root. But first, you need to understand the story. You need to know why August 19th carries such spiritual weight. You need to see how 3 shepherd children's refusal to deny their faith created a ripple effect that reaches all the way to your living room today. Because when you understand what really happened on this forgotten date, when you grasp the price that was paid for this grace to exist, these 3 prayers won't just be words you recite. They'll become bridges connecting your heart directly to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The story begins in 1917 in a small Portuguese village where heaven decided to break its silence. To understand why August 19th holds such extraordinary power, we need to travel back more than 100 years to 1917, to the small Portuguese village of Fatima. There, 3 children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, had become messengers of the Virgin Mary. Since May, Every 13th of the month, the lady dressed in white appeared to deliver a message to the world: conversion, prayer, reparation. Word was spreading like wildfire. Thousands of people began flocking to the site of the apparitions, and the fame of these supernatural events was growing beyond anyone's imagination. But August was different, dramatically different. At the beginning of that month, the civil authorities, skeptical and openly hostile to what they saw as religious fanaticism, made a decision that would change everything. They kidnapped the shepherd children. These weren't just interviews or friendly questioning. These were aggressive interrogations designed to break the children's spirits and force them to confess that everything was a lie. Picture this scene. 3 children, the oldest barely 10 years old, sitting in a government office facing grown men determined to destroy their testimony. The authorities weren't content with simple denials. They threatened the children with something that would terrify any adult, let alone kids. They threatened to throw them into a vat of boiling oil if they didn't admit their visions were made up. Can you imagine the terror? Can you feel the weight of that moment? These children, trembling but standing firm, looked their interrogators in the eye and said something that echoes through eternity. "We would rather die than lie to Our Lady." That wasn't just childhood stubbornness. That was heroic faith. That was the kind of courage that moves heaven itself. Their act of faithfulness was engraved in the heart of heaven. God doesn't forget when His children choose Him over comfort, over safety, over life itself. And Mary, the mother who had entrusted these little ones with her message, wasn't about to let their sacrifice go unnoticed. So when the children were finally released on August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption, no coincidence there, Mary made a decision that shows us something beautiful about how heaven operates. She decided that her August appointment wouldn't be lost. She chose to appear on August 19th instead. That apparition was brief, but it was loaded with meaning that we're still unpacking today. Mary asked for the same things she had always requested, but there was something different in her tone. There was an urgency, an intensity that hadn't been there before. "And I want you to continue coming to Cova da Iria on the 13th and continue praying the rosary every day," she said. "In October, I will perform a miracle so that all may believe." But then she added something that gives us the key to understanding August 19th. She asked for sacrifices with a specific prayer. "Offer yourselves for sinners and say many times, especially when you make a sacrifice, 'O Jesus, it is for love of you, for the conversion of sinners, and in reparation for the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary.'" Here's what makes this date so special. August 19th is sealed with the courage of children who refused to betray their faith, and with the love of Mary who moved her schedule to confirm her presence. It's what I call a recovered appointment between heaven and earth. You might be wondering, what does all this have to do with Padre Pio? Much more than you might think. Although he never visited Fatima, the Holy Capuchin shared the same spiritual urgency that burned in those Portuguese fields. He carried the same fire for daily rosary prayer, for offering sacrifices for the conversion of sinners, and for living under the protection of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Padre Pio would say, "The rosary is the weapon for these times." If people knew the power it contains, they would never let it go. This wasn't just devotional talk for him. This was battle strategy. This was spiritual warfare equipment. He also warned his spiritual children, "There's no day without temptation, no day without struggle, but whoever hides under Mary's mantle will never be defeated." For Padre Pio, that mantle wasn't a metaphor. It was real protection, real refuge, real power available to anyone willing to seek it. The saint understood something crucial about Marian dates like August 19th. They weren't just memorial days or historical footnotes. They were opportunities, divine appointments when God wanted to pour out graces in special measure. He recommended that on such days, People should unite prayer and sacrifice in concrete ways, with specific gestures that would mark both their souls and their homes. Think about it this way. The children of Fatima paid a price for this grace to exist. They faced real terror, real threats, real danger. They could have taken the easy way out. They could have said, "Okay, we made it all up. Please don't hurt us." But they didn't. Their faithfulness created a spiritual treasury that's still paying dividends today. Every time someone discovers August 19th and approaches it with the same faith those children showed, they tap into that same reservoir of grace. This is why Padre Pio would tell his spiritual children not to let days like this pass unnoticed. These aren't random dates on a calendar. They're doorways opened by the prayers and sacrifices of those who went before us. They're opportunities to receive what Mary herself wanted to give in 1917. But here's the key, and this is where we move from history into personal transformation. Mary didn't appear on August 19th just to complete a schedule. She appeared because she had something specific to give. Something that had been purified by the children's courage. Something that carries the power to change lives even today. Before I share with you the 3 prayers that unlock this grace, you need to understand something important about how to approach this day. What I'm about to share with you isn't based on wishful thinking or spiritual theories. It's grounded in the same devotion that transformed Padre Pio's life and the lives of countless souls who learned to pray the Rosary with real power. Speaking of the Rosary, many people have written to me asking how they can deepen their relationship with this prayer that Padre Pio called the weapon for these times. That's exactly why we create miracles, protection, and divine graces. This spiritual treasure will help you learn to pray the Rosary with more devotion and depth, discover the miracles and testimonies of those who have already experienced its power, and understand Padre Pio's most impactful teachings and phrases about prayer. You'll receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith, plus access to special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation. The Rosary was Padre Pio's great weapon, and today it can be yours too. Don't let this opportunity pass to strengthen your spiritual life with material that has already helped thousands of people. To download it, just click the link pinned in the comments. But now, let's talk about how to properly prepare for August 19th. Because here's the truth, this isn't about magic formulas or quick spiritual fixes. This is about a real encounter with Mary. This is about opening your heart so wide that the Virgin can fill it with the same grace she wanted to give the world in 1917. The first thing you need to understand is that preparation matters. The children of Fatima didn't just stumble into their encounters with heaven. They were prepared souls already accustomed to prayer, to sacrifice, to listening for God's voice in the quiet moments of ordinary life. You can create that same spiritual environment in your own home. I recommend that on the evening of August 18th, the day before this special grace becomes available, you prepare a prayer corner in your house. This will become your personal Kovada area, your own little space for encountering the Mother of God. Here's what you'll need: an image of Our Lady of Fatima, a candle, your rosary, and if possible, white flowers. These aren't just decorative elements. Each one has spiritual significance that connects you to what happened in those Portuguese fields over a century ago. The image of Our Lady of Fatima serves as a focal point for your prayer, a visual reminder of the woman who appeared to 3 children with a message that still echoes today. When you look at that image during your prayers, you're not just looking at a picture, you're connecting with the same maternal love that moved heaven to intervene in human history. The candle represents the light of faith that burned in Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, even when they faced the darkness of threats and persecution. As that flame flickers during your prayer time, let it remind you that your faith, too, can stand firm against any storm. Your rosary becomes the weapon Padre Pio spoke about, not a weapon of destruction, but of construction. A tool for building bridges between your heart and heaven, between your struggles and God's solutions, between your fears and Mary's peace. The white flowers symbolize the purity of intention that makes this kind of prayer powerful. They represent the innocence and sincerity that heaven looks for when it decides to pour out extraordinary graces. But here's what's most important about this preparation. It's not about creating the perfect setup or having all the right religious objects. It's about creating space in your heart and in your day for something sacred to happen. The night before August 19th, spend some time in that prayer corner. Don't worry about saying perfect prayers or feeling overwhelming emotions. Just be there. Just show up. Let Mary know that you're serious about receiving what she wants to give. Talk to her like the mother she is. Tell her about your struggles, your hopes, your fears. Tell her about the people in your life who need conversion, who need healing, who need hope. Remind her that you're one of her children too, and that you trust her to know what you need most. This is where the spirit of Padre Pio becomes so important. He approached Mary not as a distant figure to be admired from afar, but as a real mother who wanted to be involved in every detail of his life. He would say, Mary wants to be not just honored, but lived. She wants to be part of your daily reality, not just your Sunday devotions. When August 19th arrives, approach it with that same intimacy. This isn't a performance or a religious duty you need to get through. This is an appointment, a divine appointment that was secured by the faithfulness of 3 children who refused to betray what they had seen. The atmosphere you create, the intention you bring, the faith you exercise, all of this matters, because what you're about to receive isn't just information about 3 prayers. You're about to be given keys that unlock doors you might not even know are closed. Now, let me share with you the 3 prayers that can transform August 19th from just another date into a doorway to divine grace. Now we come to the heart of everything. These 3 prayers aren't just religious exercises or pious practices. They're spiritual keys that unlock the treasury of graces that Mary wanted to open on August 19th, 1917. Each one builds upon the other, creating a pathway that leads your soul directly into the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The first prayer is the prayer of total surrender to Mary. This is an act of personal consecration, inspired by the teachings of Saint Louis-Marie Grignon de Montfort and adopted by Padre Pio as a way of life. With this prayer, you place everything you are and everything you have into Mary's hands so that she can present it all to Jesus. Here's why this matters so much. When those 3 children faced their interrogators in August 1917, they weren't relying on their own courage. They had already given themselves completely to Mary, and she was the one protecting them, strengthening them, speaking through them. That's the same protection available to you when you make this total surrender. Kneel before your image of Our Lady of Fatima, light your candle, and pray these words with absolute sincerity. O Mary, my Mother and my Lady, on this day of grace, I surrender myself entirely to you. Take my heart, my words, my thoughts, and my works. I place everything in your most pure hands so that you may present it to your Son Jesus. Do not allow me to stray from you. Keep me always under your maternal protection. Make me an instrument of your love in this world. Amen. When you pray these words, you're not just reciting a formula. You're making a covenant. You're saying to Mary, I trust you more than I trust myself. I believe that your plans for my life are better than my own plans. I'm giving you permission to rearrange my priorities, to redirect my steps, to transform my heart. Padre Pio lived this prayer every single day. He would often say, I have given Mary the keys to my soul, and she has never lost them. That's why he could face persecution, physical suffering, and spiritual attacks with such peace. He knew that Mary was managing his life, and that nothing could touch him without first passing through her hands. The second prayer is the complete rosary for the reparation of sins. This isn't just your ordinary daily rosary. This is a rosary prayed with the specific intention of repairing the damage caused by sin, your own sins, the sins of your loved ones, and the sins of the world that break the heart of God. If you can, pray all four mysteries, joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and luminous. If time doesn't permit, at least pray the joyful, sorrowful, and glorious mysteries. But here's the key. Offer each decade as reparation for a specific type of sin. Before you begin, say this prayer: Jesus and Mary, this rosary is for love of you and for the conversion of sinners. Accept each Hail Mary as a kiss of love upon your wounded hearts. As you pray the first mystery, offer those 10 Hail Marys for sins against God, blasphemy, irreverence, abandonment of faith, and rejection of divine love. Picture Mary presenting these prayers to Jesus as balm for the wounds caused by humanity's rebellion against their Creator. During the second mystery, pray for sins against neighbor, hatred, violence, injustice, lack of charity, and all the ways people wound each other. Let each Hail Mary be a plea for healing between broken relationships, between divided families, between warring nations. The third mystery is for sins against the Immaculate Heart of Mary herself, neglect of her maternal love, rejection of her intercession, and failure to honor her as the Mother God gave us. This decade repairs the wounds in Mary's heart caused by her children's indifference. Continue this pattern through all the mysteries, always conscious that you're not just saying words. You're participating in the same work of reparation that Mary requested at Fatima. You're joining your voice to the voices of those shepherd children who understood that prayer can actually heal the world. There's something profound that happens when you pray the rosary this way. People have shared with me that after praying this reparation rosary on August 19th, they experienced profound inner healing. Wounds they had carried for years suddenly began to close. Relationships that seemed beyond repair started to mend. Addictions that had controlled their lives began to lose their power. This isn't magic. This is the natural result of aligning your heart with Mary's heart, of joining your prayers to the infinite merits of Jesus' sacrifice. The third prayer is the ejaculation of union with Mary. Throughout the day of August 19th, while you work, while you walk, while you rest, repeat this brief invocation in silence. Mary, show me the way to Jesus. Padre Pio called ejaculations like this arrows of love that pierce the heart of heaven. He carried dozens of these short prayers in his spiritual arsenal, and he would shoot them toward heaven constantly throughout the day. Mary, help me. Jesus, I trust in you. Mother, protect me. These weren't interruptions to his daily activities. They were the spiritual oxygen that kept his soul alive. The beauty of this particular ejaculation is its simplicity and its power. You're not asking Mary for specific things. You're asking for the one thing that matters most, to be led to her Son. And when Mary leads you to Jesus, everything else falls into place. Practice this throughout August 19th. Say it when you wake up in the morning. Whisper it when you're stuck in traffic. Pray it silently during conversations. Let it be the background music of your entire day. There are documented stories of people who lived August 19th with this kind of devotion and experienced extraordinary graces. A woman whose marriage was on the brink of divorce found that her husband, who hadn't prayed in years, suddenly asked her to pray the rosary with him. A man struggling with addiction woke up on August 20th with no desire for the substance that had controlled him for decades. A family facing financial ruin received an unexpected blessing that solved their crisis completely. These aren't coincidences. They're the natural fruit of souls that align themselves with the grace Mary wanted to pour out on this forgotten date. But this is just the beginning. There's something even more powerful that happens when you understand what this day really represents. The truth is, August 19th isn't just a forgotten page in the history of Fatima. It's a living date, a breathing testament to something beautiful about how heaven operates. It's proof that when God's children show courage, heaven responds with abundance. It's evidence that Mary never abandons her appointments, and that we shouldn't abandon ours either. Think about what really happened in 1917. 3 children faced the worst kind of pressure, threats against their very lives, and they chose truth over safety. They chose Mary over comfort. They chose faithfulness over the easy way out. And heaven took notice. That courage didn't just protect them in that moment. It created a spiritual inheritance that's still paying dividends today. Every time someone discovers August 19th and approaches it with genuine faith, they're drawing from the same well of grace that those children dug with their bravery. I've received letters from people whose lives were transformed after living this day with the devotion it deserves. A mother wrote to tell me that her adult son, who had been hostile to faith for 20 years, called her on August 19th asking if she would teach him to pray the rosary. She had been praying for his conversion every day for 2 decades, and heaven chose this forgotten date to answer her prayers. A man shared how he had been carrying unforgiveness toward his father for 30 years. After praying the 3 prayers on August 19th, he found himself calling his dad for the first time in a decade. They reconciled completely, and his father passed away peacefully just 3 months later. He said, "Mary gave me back my father, and she gave my father the grace of a holy death." Another woman told me about her battle with depression that had lasted for years. Nothing seemed to help, not therapy, not medication, not the support of loving friends. But after surrendering herself completely to Mary on August 19th and praying the reparation rosary, she experienced what she called the lifting of a dark cloud that had covered my soul. The depression didn't disappear overnight, but she found a peace and strength she had never known before. These aren't coincidences or random occurrences. They're the natural fruit of souls that align themselves with the grace Mary wanted to pour out on this date. They're proof that when we take forgotten appointments with heaven seriously, heaven takes our needs seriously too. But here's what strikes me most about August 19th. It represents something profound about the character of God. When the world tried to silence heaven's message, heaven didn't respond with anger or withdrawal. Heaven responded with even more love, with a make-up appointment, with a chance for the children to receive what they had almost lost. That's the heart of our God. That's the love of our Mother. They don't abandon us when we face pressure or persecution or threats. They find new ways to reach us, new dates to meet us, new opportunities to pour out the graces we need. Padre Pio understood this deeply. He would often tell his spiritual children, "Love the Virgin, pray the rosary, and don't be afraid. Mary is always with you." He knew that dates like August 19th weren't accidents or afterthoughts. They were divine appointments, sacred moments when the normal barriers between heaven and earth become paper thin. As we close, I want you to understand something important about the work we're doing together. This channel exists for one reason: to help people discover the treasures of our Catholic faith that the world has forgotten or ignored. Every video we create, every message we share, every prayer we offer is part of a mission to rebuild the spiritual foundations that our world desperately needs. But we can't do this work without you. When you give this video a thumbs up, you're not just clicking a button. You're casting a vote for faith over indifference, for hope over despair, for the truth of heaven over the lies of this world. When you share this message with your friends and family, you're participating in the same work of evangelization that Mary began at Fatima. And when you become a member of this channel, you're joining a spiritual family dedicated to supporting each other in living out these truths. You're saying, "I believe that heaven is real, that prayer works, and that we're called to help each other get home to God." Your support doesn't just help us create more content. It helps us reach souls who are searching for exactly what you found here today. It helps us bring forgotten graces like August 19th back into the light, where they can transform lives again. So this August 19th, I want you to do something specific. After you've prayed the 3 prayers, after you've experienced whatever grace Mary wants to give you, come back to this video and leave a comment telling us how this day changed your heart. Tell us what you experienced, what you learned, what Mary revealed to you in the quiet moments of prayer. Your testimony might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear. Your story might be the encouragement that helps someone else take that step of faith. Remember, the children of Fatima weren't keeping their experiences to themselves. They were sharing what they had seen and heard, even when it cost them dearly. You can do the same. You can be part of spreading this forgotten grace to a world that desperately needs it. But most importantly, don't let August 19th pass by like just another day on the calendar. Mark it, prepare for it. Enter into it with the same faith that moved those 3 shepherd children to choose truth over comfort. Because here's the beautiful reality. The doors of heaven don't open by themselves. They're pushed open by prayer. They're unlocked by faith. They're widened by the courage of souls who believe that God keeps his promises and that Mary never forgets her children. This August 19th, give Mary your time, your voice, and your heart. Let her show you why this forgotten date carries such power. Let her prove to you that heaven's appointments are always worth keeping. The same God who rewarded the faithfulness of 3 Portuguese children is waiting to reward your faithfulness too. Don't miss your appointment with grace. Have you ever felt that something in your home seems to be blocking God's blessings, especially during this sacred time of Lent? That feeling of spiritual heaviness, like something invisible is standing between you and the divine presence you so deeply desire. My dear brothers and sisters, today I'm bringing you a message that St. Padre Pio revealed to many of his spiritual children, but that few discuss openly in our modern world. It's about the objects in your home that could be preventing you from experiencing the full power of this Lenten season. Lent is not just about giving up chocolate or saying more prayers. It's a profound spiritual journey of purification and preparation. It's a sacred time when we're called to cleanse not only our souls, but also our surroundings. Our homes should become sanctuaries where God's grace can flow freely, where angels feel welcome, where spiritual growth is nurtured. But Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual insights, warned that certain common objects in our homes can become stumbling blocks on our path to God. Objects that might seem innocent or even beautiful to our eyes, but that carry spiritual weight we often fail to recognize. You might be wondering, what could I possibly have in my home that would concern a saint like Padre Pio? The truth might surprise you. These aren't just obvious items like occult symbols or pagan statues. They're often everyday things that have found their way into our homes without us realizing their spiritual impact. Today, I'm going to share with you 6 categories of objects that Padre Pio advised should not be in our homes during Lent. Some of these revelations might surprise you, challenge you, or even make you uncomfortable, but I'm sharing them with you because I care deeply about your spiritual well-being and the protection of your family. As Padre Pio himself would say, pray, hope, and don't worry. This message isn't meant to cause fear, but to bring awareness and spiritual freedom. By the end of this video, you'll have practical knowledge on how to transform your home into a true sanctuary during this Lenten season. Before we continue, if you believe your home should be a sacred space where God's presence dwells freely, write in the comments, "My home will be a sanctuary for Christ this Lent." Your declaration of faith matters, and it sets your intention for the transformation we'll discuss today. Stay with me until the end, because the 6th category of objects is perhaps the most surprising, yet the most powerful for your spiritual transformation during Lent. It's a revelation that has changed countless lives when put into practice. Are you ready to discover what might be blocking God's blessings in your home? Let's begin this journey of spiritual household cleansing together, guided by the wisdom of Saint Padre Pio. Before we dive into these life-changing revelations from Padre Pio, I want to share something special with you. Many of you have been asking for deeper guidance on how to apply Padre Pio's spiritual wisdom in your daily lives. That's why we've created The Spiritual Secrets of Saint Padre Pio, an ebook filled with powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. This resource is especially valuable during Lent, as it contains Padre Pio's specific guidance for this sacred season, including his lesser-known teachings about purifying your home and heart. If today's message resonates with you, this ebook will take your spiritual journey even further. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below. It's our mission to spread these teachings, so we've made it accessible for everyone seeking spiritual growth during this Lenten season. Now, let's continue with our exploration of the objects Padre Pio warns against keeping in our homes. The first category of items Padre Pio cautioned against might surprise you. It's certain clothing and accessories we keep in our homes. Our wardrobes are more than just storage for fabric. They contain expressions of our identity and values. Padre Pio, with his remarkable spiritual sensitivity, understood that what we wear and keep can carry spiritual significance. Consider the symbols, messages, and images displayed on the clothes hanging in your closet. Some garments feature symbols that have occult origins, even if they've become popularized as fashion. Others display messages promoting values directly opposed to Christian virtues, phrases encouraging pride, vanity, rebellion against moral values, or disrespect towards sacred realities. Padre Pio taught that everything in our lives should reflect our relationship with God. He would often tell his spiritual children, "Your exterior appearance is a reflection of your interior disposition." During Lent, a season of spiritual refinement, he encouraged a thorough examination of our possessions, beginning with our clothing. I remember meeting Maria, a devoted woman who came to our parish retreat last year. She shared how she had been experiencing persistent spiritual dryness despite her regular prayers. After hearing about Padre Pio's teachings on household objects, she decided to review her wardrobe. She was shocked to discover several items with symbols she'd never paid attention to, including Eastern religious symbols contrary to her faith and shirts, with subtle messages glorifying self-centered attitudes. "I never connected my spiritual struggles with these items," Maria confessed. "They were just fashion to me. But after removing them during Lent last year, I experienced a tangible sense of spiritual lightness I hadn't felt in years. It was as if a veil had been lifted from my prayer life." This Lent, Padre Pio invites us to examine our closets with spiritual eyes. Ask yourself these questions. Does this garment honor God? Would I feel comfortable wearing this in the presence of Christ? Does this item reflect the values I profess with my faith? The solution isn't necessarily to discard everything, but to be intentional about what we keep in our sacred space, our home. Items that don't align with your spiritual values can be donated to those in need, transforming something potentially problematic into an act of Lenten charity. Remember, this purification isn't about rigid rules, but about creating harmony between our faith and our living environment. As Padre Pio often said, the spiritual life must overflow into every aspect of your existence. The second category Padre Pio cautioned about involves the visual elements in our homes, the artwork, decorations, and images that surround us daily. These aren't just aesthetic choices, they're powerful influences on our spiritual atmosphere. Our homes should be, as Padre Pio described, small sanctuaries where heaven touches earth. Yet many of us have unknowingly introduced elements that create spiritual discord rather than harmony. Artwork depicting violence, Sculptures embodying materialistic values, abstract pieces conveying chaos rather than peace, or images glorifying worldly success over spiritual wealth. All these can subtly affect our spiritual well-being. Think of your home as a garden for your soul. Every visual element is either nurturing spiritual growth or introducing weeds that choke it. During Lent, when we are especially focused on spiritual cultivation, Padre Pio advised a careful assessment of what we allow to grow in this garden. James, a business executive I counseled, shared a profound testimony about this very matter. His home office was decorated with aggressive, competitive imagery, art that he believed motivated his professional drive. During a particularly difficult Lent, when he felt spiritually empty despite his success, he decided to apply Padre Pio's teaching. I replaced those images with a simple crucifix and a serene landscape, James told me. I was skeptical at first, thinking it was just superstition, but within weeks I noticed not just a spiritual change, but a transformation in how I approached my work. I became more ethical, more compassionate with my employees, yet somehow more successful. The constant internal aggression I'd been feeding had been exhausting me spiritually. Padre Pio wasn't suggesting we live in austere environments with bare walls. Rather, he encouraged surrounding ourselves with beauty that elevates the soul toward God. Consider images of natural beauty that reflect the Creator's hand, religious art that inspires devotion, or symbols that remind us of eternal truths. During Lent, examine each room in your home and ask, does the visual environment here lead my heart toward prayer? Do these images and objects create a sense of peace and spiritual elevation? Would Padre Pio, with his heightened spiritual sensitivity, feel at home here? You might consider creating a sacred corner in your living space, a focal point with meaningful religious items where family prayer can occur. This becomes an anchor for the spiritual atmosphere of the entire home. As Padre Pio wisely noted, the eyes are the windows of the soul. What our eyes regularly behold shapes our interior life. This Lent, let's ensure what we see daily in our homes nourishes rather than depletes our spiritual reserves. The third category Padre Pio warned about is perhaps the most subtle yet profoundly impactful: objects connected to our past that we keep in our homes. Lent is a time of spiritual unburdening, yet many of us live surrounded by physical reminders of spiritual burdens we've yet to release. Consider the items tucked away in drawers and boxes, gifts from broken relationships, mementos from periods of your life marked by sin or suffering, objects associated with painful memories or people who harmed you. Padre Pio, with his deep understanding of spiritual healing, recognized that these physical connections can act as invisible chains, binding us to past wounds, preventing the complete healing God desires for us. These objects operate like spiritual anchors, holding us in place when God is calling us to move forward. During Lent, a season of liberation and renewal, Padre Pio encouraged a compassionate but thorough inventory of these emotional attachments. Sarah's story illustrates this principle powerfully. A woman in her 50s, she had kept a collection of letters and gifts from a relationship that had ended painfully 20 years earlier. These items remained hidden in a trunk in her attic, rarely seen, but energetically present in her home. Every Lent, I would pray for healing from that relationship, she shared, but I never considered that keeping these mementos was like trying to heal a wound while periodically reopening it. Padre Pio's teaching about objects from the past finally gave me the courage to release these things. Sarah described the experience of finally releasing these items as a weight lifting that I didn't even know I was carrying. My prayers during Lent became more powerful, more authentic. It wasn't just emotional healing, it was spiritual freedom. This Lenten season, Padre Pio invites us to ask courageously, what am I holding on to that God is asking me to release? What objects in my home represent chapters of my life that heaven has already healed or desires to heal? What physical items are connected to spiritual and emotional wounds? The process might be challenging, but it aligns perfectly with the Lenten journey of unburdening. You might consider a ritual of release, perhaps a prayer as you thoughtfully remove these items, thanking God for the healing He has brought and continues to bring into your life. As Padre Pio beautifully taught, the past should be a springboard, not an anchor. This Lent, let your home reflect not what once bound you, but what now frees you. The fourth category of concern for Padre Pio, though he lived before its full manifestation, is the modern invasion of technology and media in our homes. During Lent, a season designed for spiritual listening, our homes often remain filled with constant noise, notifications, and digital distractions. While Padre Pio couldn't have known about smartphones or streaming services, his spiritual principles apply profoundly to our digital age. He repeatedly emphasized the necessity of silence for encountering God, saying, "In the silence of the heart, God speaks." Yet many of our homes have no space for silence, every room filled with televisions, computers, tablets, and phones, all competing for our attention. The issue isn't technology itself, but how it has colonized our sacred spaces, leaving no room for the divine whisper. During Lent especially, Padre Pio would caution against the constant digital consumption that numbs our spiritual sensitivity and crowds out prayer. Consider how many of us reach for our phones before reaching for our Bibles, check social media before checking in with God, or fall asleep to streaming shows rather than evening prayer. These habits form invisible barriers to the spiritual awakening Lent invites us to experience. I'm reminded of David, a young professional who struggled with what he called spiritual dryness, despite his sincere desire for a deeper faith. After learning about Padre Pio's emphasis on sacred silence, he decided to transform his technology use during Lent. "I created technology-free zones in my home, including my bedroom and dining area," David explained. "And I also established digital sundowns, turning off all screens 2 hours before bed. The first few days were surprisingly difficult, like an addiction withdrawal. But by the second week of Lent, I experienced prayer in a way I never had before. The constant mental chatter had quieted, and I could finally hear God's voice in the silence." This Lent, Padre Pio would invite us to assess, has technology become an idol occupying the central place in our home that should belong to God? Do screens dictate our attention more than prayer? Has digital noise drowned out the still, small voice of the divine? Practical steps might include designating certain areas as screen-free zones, establishing technology fasts during specific hours, being intentional about content consumption, or creating a digital Sabbath one day each week during Lent. Remember, the goal isn't technological asceticism for its own sake, but creating space for what truly matters. As Padre Pio would remind us, the measure of love is to love without measure. This Lent, let's measure our technology use against our love for God, ensuring our homes facilitate rather than frustrate our spiritual connection. The fifth category that Padre Pio cautioned about concerns the literature and entertainment we keep in our homes. Padre Pio was himself an avid reader who understood the profound impact of words on the human spirit. "Oi, what you read," he would tell his spiritual children, "becomes the furniture of your mind." Yet many homes today contain books, magazines, and entertainment materials that, rather than building up the soul, subtly undermine our spiritual foundations. During Lent, when we're called to renew our minds, the reading materials and entertainment options within our homes deserve particular attention. Consider the books on your shelves or e-readers. Some may contain philosophies that directly contradict gospel values, promoting relativism, materialism, or ideologies incompatible with faith. Others might glamorize sin or mock what's sacred. Some seemingly innocent fiction might be spiritually empty at best or spiritually harmful at worst. The issue extends beyond books to the movies, music, and shows we store digitally or physically in our homes. Padre Pio, with his remarkable spiritual sensitivity, could discern how these materials affect the spiritual atmosphere of a home. What might seem like harmless entertainment to us could be creating spiritual static that interferes with deeper communion with God. This principle became evident to Rebecca, a mother of 3 teenagers, who decided to apply Padre Pio's teaching during Lent last year. She conducted a family inventory of their books, music, and digital entertainment, discussing why certain materials might not align with their faith. It wasn't about imposing harsh rules, Rebecca shared. It was about raising awareness. We replaced some items with spiritually enriching alternatives, and for the entertainment, we decided wasn't beneficial. We discussed why, as a family. The conversations alone were transformative, but the real miracle was the change in our home's atmosphere. There was more peace, more joy, and somehow more space for God. My teenagers even noticed the difference. This Lent, Padre Pio invites us to examine, does this book, movie, or music lead me closer to Christ or away from Him? Does it elevate my thoughts or lower them? Would I be comfortable if Jesus Himself browsed my entertainment collection? Consider replacing spiritually problematic materials with life-giving alternatives, the biographies of saints, the catechism, or texts that deepen your understanding of faith. For entertainment, seek options that inspire virtue rather than vice, that elevate rather than degrade. As Padre Pio wisely observed, what feeds your mind eventually fills your heart. This Lent, let's ensure our homes contain nourishment for both. The 6th and final category that Padre Pio warned against keeping in our homes during Lent is perhaps the most surprising yet universally applicable: excessive material accumulation. Detachment is a core practice of Lent, yet many of our homes have become warehouses of unnecessary possessions that silently hinder our spiritual growth. Padre Pio lived with remarkable simplicity. His cell contained only the bare essentials. This wasn't mere asceticism, it was spiritual wisdom. He understood that material excess creates spiritual heaviness. The more things you own, he would counsel, the more things own you. During Lent, when we're called to spiritual lightness and freedom, our cluttered closets, overstuffed garages, and packed storage spaces represent more than organizational challenges. They're spiritual obstacles. They stand as monuments to attachment, consumption, and the false security we place in possessions. Look around your home with honest eyes. How many items do you own that you never use? Clothes unworn for years, kitchen gadgets gathering dust, decorative items that serve no purpose, collections that consume space but add no value to your life. Each unused item could bless someone in need, yet we hold on, often without knowing why. Christ's words echo with particular force during Lent. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Matthew 6:19-20. I remember counseling Michael, a successful businessman whose home was filled with expensive possessions. During one Lent, feeling spiritually stagnant, he decided to apply Padre Pio's teaching on detachment. I began with just one room, Michael explained. I asked of each item, does this help me love God or others better? If not, I released it. The process was painful at first. I'd invested so much of my identity in these things. But with each item I gave away, I felt lighter. By Easter, not only was my home transformed, but so was my heart. I discovered a freedom I hadn't known was possible. This Lent, Padre Pio invites us to this liberating practice. Choose at least one area of your home, a closet, a room, or even a single drawer. Ask of each item, does this serve a genuine need? Could it better serve someone else? Is my attachment to this healthy or hindering? The goal isn't barren minimalism, but spiritual freedom. As Padre Pio simply stated, empty your house so God can fill it. My dear friends, we've journeyed together through Padre Pio's powerful teachings about the objects in our homes that might be hindering our spiritual growth during this sacred Lenten season. We've explored how our clothing, decorations, objects from our past, technology, literature, and material accumulation can either support or hinder our spiritual journey. These teachings aren't about rigid rules or superstition. They're about creating a home environment that nurtures our relationship with God. They're about removing obstacles so that grace can flow more freely in our lives and families. As Padre Pio would say, the home is the domestic church, where faith is first nurtured or first neglected. The transformation that can occur when we apply these principles is nothing short of remarkable. I'm reminded of a family I worked with last year, Thomas and Angela and their 3 children. They had been experiencing persistent family conflict, spiritual dryness, and a sense of heaviness in their home despite their regular mass attendance and prayers. During Lent, they committed to applying all 6 categories of Padre Pio's teaching on household objects. They involved their children in age-appropriate ways, explaining the spiritual purpose behind each change. They removed clothing with inappropriate messages, replaced certain artwork with images that inspired faith, released objects tied to painful memories, established technology-free zones and times, reviewed and refreshed their families' reading and entertainment materials, and significantly decluttered their home, donating many items to those in need. The first week was challenging, Angela shared. There was resistance, especially around the technology boundaries. But by the 3rd week of Lent, something shifted. The atmosphere in our home changed. There was more laughter, more meaningful conversations. Our evening prayers, which had become routine, suddenly felt alive again. Thomas added, "What surprised me most was how these external changes affected our internal family dynamics. Arguments decreased, patience increased. It was as if removing the physical clutter allowed emotional and spiritual space to open up between us." Their oldest child offered perhaps the most profound observation. "Our house feels peaceful now. It feels like God lives here with us." This, my friends, is the invitation Padre Pio extends to each of us this Lent, to create homes where it feels like God lives here with us, not through extravagant religious displays, but through thoughtful stewardship of our physical environment that reflects our spiritual values. Today, I challenge you to take one concrete step from what you've learned. Choose just one category we've discussed and make one change in your home. Remove one item that doesn't align with your faith. Create one technology-free zone. Donate something you're unnecessarily attached to. Start small, but start today. Remember Padre Pio's profound words. Prayer is the best weapon we possess. It is the key that opens the heart of God. Let your home become a place that facilitates rather than hinders that prayer. Let every object within it either support your spiritual journey or make room for something that does. If this message has touched your heart today, please write in the comments, "My home will be transformed this Lent." Your declaration matters. It sets an intention that angels honor and that God blesses. And please share this video with someone you love who might benefit from creating a more spiritually nurturing home environment. Before I close, if you found value in today's teaching, please support our mission of spreading Padre Pio's wisdom by subscribing to our channel and clicking the notification bell. Your simple gesture helps us reach more souls with these life-changing spiritual truths. Let me leave you with one final thought from Padre Pio. Your home on earth should prepare you for your eternal home in heaven. This Lent, let's take this wisdom to heart, creating homes that are truly forecourts of heaven, places where faith flourishes, where grace abounds, and where God's presence is palpably felt. May God bless you, your family, and your home during this holy season of Lent. Until next time, remember Padre Pio's words: pray, hope, and don't worry. God is with you in this journey of transformation. Dear friends, if this message has touched your heart, we need your support to continue sharing Padre Pio's teachings with more people. Your small action makes a big difference in our spiritual mission. Please like this video, Share it with someone who needs this blessing, and if you're not yet a member of our community, we invite you to join today. Each new member allows us to bring these words of faith and hope to more homes. Remember, together we form a family in Christ, and with your support, we can continue to be a beacon of light in these times. May God abundantly bless you for your generosity. What if I told you that the rosary hanging on your wall right now might be the source of the unexplained tension in your home? This isn't superstition or fear-mongering. This comes directly from Saint Padre Pio, who could see what most of us cannot. Last week, a woman wrote to me describing how her family was falling apart. Constant arguments, financial problems, even health issues that doctors couldn't explain. After viewing one of our videos, she examined the antique rosary hanging in her bedroom, a black one she'd purchased at an estate sale. Within days of removing it, the atmosphere in her home transformed completely. Padre Pio, the stigmatic saint with extraordinary spiritual gifts, left us a warning that few have heeded. Certain rosaries, particularly in 3 specific colors, can act as spiritual conduits for negative influences rather than divine protection. And what's truly alarming, these are often the most beautiful, most unique rosaries that catch our eye in shops or online stores. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly which colors Padre Pio warned against, why these seemingly innocent prayer beads might be affecting your home, and the 6 warning signs that a rosary might be spiritually compromised. The third type I'll mention is particularly concerning. It's become increasingly common in Catholic homes, despite its hidden dangers. Are you ready to discover what might be hiding in plain sight in your prayer corner? Because after hearing this teaching from Padre Pio, you'll never look at rosaries the same way again. If you believe in the spiritual wisdom of Padre Pio, write in the comments, "Discern my path, Padre Pio." Your comment could help someone whose home is being affected without them realizing it. Now let me take you deeper into understanding the true power of the rosary, and why this very power makes it a target for spiritual distortion. The rosary isn't merely a string of beads, it's a profound spiritual weapon. When used with sincere devotion, it creates a powerful chain of prayer connecting us directly to the Blessed Virgin Mary and through her to Christ himself. Since its revelation to St. Dominic in the 13th century, the rosary has been associated with countless spiritual victories, conversions, and miracles. But this spiritual power is precisely what makes the rosary susceptible to misuse. Throughout history, sacred objects have been targets for distortion and profanation. As Padre Pio often reminded his spiritual children, the devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain. Beyond the length of the chain, he cannot catch hold of anyone. And you keep at a distance. Padre Pio possessed extraordinary spiritual gifts. He could read souls, bilocate, and most relevantly to our discussion today, he could sense when an object carried spiritual influences. Many visitors to San Giovanni Rotondo were surprised when Padre Pio would refuse to bless certain items they brought, sometimes even requesting they be destroyed. One woman from Naples once approached him with what appeared to be an ordinary rosary. Before she could speak, Padre Pio recoiled and said, "Take that thing away from here. It has not been created for prayer, but for something else entirely." Later investigation revealed the rosary had been used in occult rituals before being disguised as a Catholic sacramental. This gift of discernment allowed Padre Pio to teach us a crucial spiritual principle. Not everything that appears holy is truly sacred. In our modern world, where religious items are mass-produced and sold as fashion accessories or decorative pieces, this warning becomes even more significant. Many Catholics today collect rosaries of different colors and designs without considering their spiritual implications. We must remember that sacramentals are not mere accessories. They are extensions of our faith and channels of grace when properly blessed and respected. Now, let me share something important with you. If you're seeking to deepen your spiritual connection with Padre Pio and strengthen your faith, I've created a special resource for you. Our ebook, The Spiritual Secrets of Saint Padre Pio, contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. You'll find the link pinned in the comments if you wish to discover how this content can transform your spiritual journey. But returning to our topic, what exactly makes certain colored rosaries potentially dangerous? Let's explore the 3 specific types that Padre Pio warned against keeping in your home, and why their presence might be affecting your family's spiritual well-being in ways you haven't realized. According to the wisdom passed down from Padre Pio, there are 3 specific types of rosaries that deserve particular caution. Each carries potential spiritual risks that may not be immediately apparent to those who possess them. The first type that Padre Pio warned against is the completely black rosary. While black can symbolize mourning and penitence in Catholic tradition, this color has also been appropriated for various esoteric and occult practices. Padre Pio noticed that many black rosaries, especially those not acquired from trusted religious sources, had been previously used in rituals contrary to the Christian faith. There's a profound story from one of Padre Pio's spiritual directors about a woman who struggled with inexplicable nightmares and a growing sense of despair. Despite regular prayer and confession, her spiritual distress continued to worsen. When she finally visited San Giovanni Rotondo, Padre Pio immediately asked about the dark object she kept by her bedside. It was a black rosary she had found in an antique shop, attracted by its ornate silver crucifix. Padre Pio instructed her to dispose of it, explaining that this rosary had been consecrated for purposes far removed from Christian devotion. Within days of following his advice, her spiritual troubles subsided. The spiritual sensitivity that allowed Padre Pio to detect these influences wasn't merely intuition. It was a profound gift of discernment that many witnesses confirmed. He could often sense the history of an object, particularly those used in spiritual contexts, whether for good or ill. This gift allowed him to identify black rosaries that had been used in ceremonies invoking powers opposed to Christian faith, even when these objects appeared perfectly ordinary to others. What made black rosaries particularly concerning to Padre Pio wasn't the color itself, but how this color had been adopted by certain groups specifically because it absorbed and concealed spiritual energies. He explained that black objects, when used in negative spiritual practices, could become repositories for influences that remained active long after the initial rituals concluded. These influences, while invisible to ordinary perception, created what he described as spiritual interference that disrupted prayer and peace. The second concerning category is the blood-red rosary. While red traditionally represents the blood of Christ and the martyrs in Catholic symbolism, certain intensely red rosaries have associations with blood rituals and practices that distort this sacred meaning. Padre Pio could distinguish between appropriate red rosaries and those carrying troubling spiritual influences. Padre Pio explained that the color itself wasn't inherently problematic. It was the intention behind the object's creation and previous use that mattered. Some red rosaries were specifically crafted for rituals involving blood pacts or invocations outside the Christian tradition. These objects, even when later blessed, could retain spiritual residues that interfere with peaceful prayer. During his lifetime, Padre Pio encountered numerous cases of devotees who experienced spiritual difficulties connected to blood-red rosaries acquired from uncertain sources. One particularly notable case involved a family experiencing unusual discord after receiving an antique red rosary as a gift. The father, previously gentle and patient, began suffering from uncharacteristic anger. Their teenage son developed severe insomnia, while their youngest child became fearful of entering certain rooms of the house. When they consulted Padre Pio, he immediately inquired about the red chain hanging in your prayer room. The mother was shocked. They had indeed hung an ornate red rosary as a decorative element in their home altar. Padre Pio explained that this particular rosary had been used in rituals, mixing Catholic prayers with invocations to other entities, creating a spiritual confusion that was affecting their home environment. After removing it and having their home blessed, the family reported that peace returned to their relationships and home. The third category, perhaps the most concerning in today's context, involves multicolored rosaries made from unconventional materials that mimic amulets or talismans from non-Christian traditions. These include rosaries with beads resembling eyes, unusual symbols embedded within the crucifix, or those incorporating elements from multiple spiritual traditions. These hybrid rosaries represent what Padre Pio called spiritual confusion, objects that blend authentic Catholic devotion with elements from incompatible spiritual practices. In our age of spiritual eclecticism and mass production, these rosaries have become increasingly common, often marketed as inclusive spirituality or universal prayer beads. This third category presents particular challenges because it often appears benign or even positively ecumenical to the untrained eye. Padre Pio warned that these syncretic rosaries were especially troubling because they created confusion about the nature of prayer itself. Prayer in the Christian tradition is directed toward God through specific channels of grace. When prayer tools incorporate elements from multiple spiritual systems with fundamentally different understandings of the divine, they can create what Padre Pio described as spiritual static, interference in the clear channel of communication with God. Modern spiritual marketplaces, both online and in physical locations, have made these hybrid prayer beads increasingly available. Some incorporate crystals claim to have specific energetic properties, symbols from various world religions, or elements like evil eyes meant to ward off negative influences. While often marketed as spiritually inclusive, these objects reflect what Padre Pio described as a spiritual compromise that ultimately diminishes authentic connection with God. A particularly troubling trend Padre Pio might recognize in our modern context is the commercialization of rosaries as fashion accessories or decorative items divorced from their spiritual purpose. When sacred objects become primarily aesthetic or trendy items, they risk losing their spiritual integrity. This doesn't necessarily make them spiritually dangerous in the same way as objects used in contrary practices, but it represents a different kind of spiritual confusion, one that trivializes sacred things. How can you identify potentially problematic rosaries? Padre Pio offered several indicators. First, pay attention to their origin. Rosaries from unknown sources, especially those found in second-hand shops, flea markets, or gifted by individuals with unclear spiritual affiliations, deserve particular scrutiny. Second, notice your inner response when praying with them. Authentic sacramentals typically bring peace and focus to prayer. If you experience unusual distraction, anxiety, or spiritual dryness specifically when using a particular rosary, this might be a sign of spiritual interference. Third, be wary of unusual symbols, inscriptions, or modifications to the traditional design, particularly if they incorporate elements from non-Christian traditions or seemingly arbitrary symbols. Fourth, consider the physical materials. While rosaries can be made from various substances, those incorporating materials associated with occult practices, certain crystals, bones, or unusual metals, should be approached with caution. Fifth, be mindful of intuitive reactions. Padre Pio believed that God often speaks through subtle interior promptings. If you feel an inexplicable unease about a particular rosary, this discomfort might be worth heeding, even if you can't immediately identify its cause. Sixth, consider the effect on your prayer life. The true purpose of a rosary is to facilitate prayer and meditation on the mysteries of Christ's life. If a particular rosary seems to consistently distract rather than focus your attention, or if you find yourself avoiding prayer when using it, this might indicate an incompatibility with its intended spiritual purpose. It's important to note that Padre Pio's cautions about these specific rosaries weren't meant to create fear or superstition. Rather, they reflected his deep understanding that spiritual realities, while invisible, have real effects on our lives and prayers. His guidance invited Catholics to approach sacramentals with informed reverence rather than casual indifference. Padre Pio also emphasized that no object, regardless of its history, has power greater than God's grace. Even rosaries with troubling histories can be properly reconsecrated through the Church's blessing, though in some cases, he recommended replacing them entirely as a matter of spiritual prudence. As we move forward, let's examine how these objects might be affecting your home environment and family relationships in ways you may not have connected to their presence. The presence of spiritually compromised rosaries in your home can manifest in surprising ways that many fail to recognize. Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual insight, observed patterns of spiritual and domestic disturbance connected to these objects. The first sign often appears in your prayer life. Many devoted Catholics report a mysterious resistance to prayer despite their sincere intention. One man from Sicily described it as trying to swim upstream whenever he attempted to establish a regular prayer routine. After consulting with Padre Pio, he discovered that an antique rosary displayed prominently in his home, a family heirloom with an unusual combination of black and red beads, was creating what Padre Pio called a spiritual static. Once removed, his prayer life flowed naturally again. Beyond prayer difficulties, problematic rosaries can affect the atmosphere of your home. Unexplained tension, recurring arguments over trivial matters, and a persistent feeling of heaviness are common symptoms. What makes these signs particularly troubling is how ordinary they seem, often mistaken for normal family stress or personal challenges rather than spiritual interference. Sleep disturbances represent another frequently reported effect. Nightmares, insomnia, or feeling unusually drained upon waking, especially when these symptoms affect multiple family members simultaneously, might indicate spiritual influence. Padre Pio explained that during sleep, our conscious defenses are lowered, making us more susceptible to the subtle influences of spiritually compromised objects. Children and pets, with their natural spiritual sensitivity, often react first to these influences. Behavioral changes, unexplained fears, or a child's sudden reluctance to enter certain rooms where these objects are kept can be telling indicators that something in the environment is creating spiritual discomfort. What's particularly striking in Padre Pio's teaching is how these effects accumulate gradually. The spiritual disruption rarely announces itself dramatically. Instead, it builds slowly, eroding peace and harmony incrementally until the home environment feels fundamentally altered. Martha, a devoted parishioner who regularly corresponded with Padre Pio, shared a powerful testimony. For nearly 2 years, her previously harmonious household experienced escalating conflict and emotional distance. Financial problems emerged without clear cause, and family members began suffering from chronic exhaustion and irritability. What began as occasional disagreements evolved into a pattern of constant tension that threatened their family unity. Seeking guidance, she wrote to Padre Pio, who asked a surprising question. Had she recently acquired any new religious items? Martha remembered a collection of rosaries she had purchased at an estate sale. Beautiful pieces in unusual colors that she'd placed throughout her home as reminders to pray. Padre Pio instructed her to remove them and have new, properly blessed rosaries from a reputable religious source. The transformation in her household was remarkable. Within weeks, the atmosphere lightened, relationships began healing, and even their financial situation gradually improved. Padre Pio explained that spiritually compromised objects don't create problems from nothing. Rather, they amplify existing weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Like a magnifying glass focusing sunlight, they intensify natural human failings into persistent patterns of discord. This explains why their effects can be so difficult to identify. The resulting problems seem like natural extensions of ordinary human weakness rather than external spiritual influence. Understanding these signs is the first step toward discernment. But how should you proceed if you suspect a rosary in your possession might be carrying negative spiritual influences? What practical steps did Padre Pio recommend for restoring spiritual protection to your home? Let's explore his guidance for addressing these concerns with both faith and prudence. Padre Pio provided clear, practical guidance for those who discovered potentially problematic rosaries in their homes. His approach balanced spiritual discernment with practical action, emphasizing that addressing these concerns required both faith and prudence. The first step he recommended was a thorough inventory of religious items in your home. This isn't about paranoia or seeing problems where none exist, but rather bringing mindful awareness to objects we often take for granted. Examine each rosary, noting its origin, materials, and any unusual features that deviate from traditional designs. Ask yourself, where did this come from? Who made it? What was their intention? If you discover rosaries of the three concerning types, black, blood red, or unusual multicolored ones with non-traditional elements, Padre Pio offered specific protocols for handling them. Importantly, he cautioned against simply throwing them away, as this doesn't address their spiritual nature. For rosaries with unclear origins, but no obviously troubling features, Padre Pio recommended a simple blessing by a priest. Most parish priests are familiar with blessing religious items and can do this after Mass or during scheduled office hours. This blessing reconsecrates the object for its proper sacred purpose, nullifying any previous misuse or negative associations. However, for rosaries that trigger genuine spiritual discomfort or possess clearly problematic elements, Padre Pio advised a different approach. These should be taken to a priest experienced in spiritual matters, who can determine whether the item should be blessed or, in some cases, properly disposed of through specific prayers and protocols. The proper way to dispose of blessed items that cannot be repurposed, Padre Pio explained, is to return them to the elements. This typically means burning or burying them after prayers have been said. This should be done with reverence, acknowledging that even compromised religious objects deserve respectful treatment. Prevention is equally important. When acquiring new rosaries, Padre Pio emphasized three criteria: proper source, proper blessing, and proper intention. Purchase rosaries only from reputable religious suppliers, church gift shops, established Catholic bookstores, or directly from religious communities. Have them blessed before use, and approach them with reverence rather than as decorative or fashion accessories. Padre Pio particularly recommended traditional rosaries made of simple materials, wood, glass, or basic metals, crafted by religious communities as part of their contemplative work. These rosaries, he noted, carry the added blessing of being created in an environment of prayer. For those who've experienced negative spiritual influences, Padre Pio suggested a comprehensive approach to restoring spiritual health to the home. This included having the house blessed by a priest, establishing a dedicated prayer space with properly blessed religious items, and maintaining regular family prayer, particularly the rosary itself, when used as intended. One practical recommendation that Padre Pio often gave was creating what he called a spiritual shield for the home. This involved placing properly blessed sacramentals, a crucifix, holy water, and a simple traditional rosary near entryways and in bedrooms. These items, when blessed and used with sincere devotion, create a protective spiritual atmosphere. In all these recommendations, Padre Pio emphasized an important principle. The power lies not in the objects themselves, but in the faith, intention, and divine blessing they carry. A simple wooden rosary, properly blessed and used with sincere devotion, carries far more spiritual power than the most ornate or expensive rosary approached as a talisman or accessory. As we conclude our exploration of this little-known teaching from Padre Pio, let's integrate these insights into a comprehensive understanding of spiritual protection for our homes and families. As we've journeyed through these warnings from Padre Pio about the spiritual significance of rosaries, let's remember his greatest teaching. True protection comes not from objects themselves, but from sincere faith and devotion to God. The rosary, when used properly, is a powerful tool for prayer, but its power flows from the intentions of the heart, not from the beads themselves. Padre Pio wanted us to understand that discernment in our spiritual lives extends to everything we bring into our homes. The black rosaries, blood-red beads, and unconventional multicolored prayer beads he warned against are significant not because of any inherent evil in colors or materials, but because of how they might have been used or the intentions with which they were created. Our spiritual journeys require both faith and vigilance. Pray, hope, and don't worry, Padre Pio famously said, but he also taught that prayer should be accompanied by prudent action. Examining the rosaries in your home, ensuring they come from trustworthy sources, and having them properly blessed are simple acts of spiritual vigilance that honor his teachings. Remember that the true purpose of any sacramental, including the rosary, is to draw us closer to Christ through prayer and devotion. When we maintain this proper perspective, the rosary becomes what it was always meant to be, a lifeline of prayer connecting us to heaven. If the warnings in this video have resonated with your spirit, I invite you to write "spiritual protection" in the comments below. Your comment will help others discover this important message who may be facing unexplained spiritual challenges in their homes. And if you found value in these teachings of Padre Pio, please consider supporting our channel's mission to spread these vital spiritual insights. Each like, share, and subscription helps us reach more souls seeking spiritual guidance in these challenging times. Your support is essential for our mission to spread Padre Pio's teachings. If this video has touched your heart, please like it, share it with your loved ones, and consider becoming a channel member. Together, we form a spiritual community, and with your help, we can bring these words of faith and hope to more people who need them. May Padre Pio's blessing be upon you and your home, bringing discernment, protection, and peace to your spiritual journey. Remember his words, "The rosary is the weapon for these times. But like any weapon, it must be used wisely and with proper understanding." Thank you for joining us today on this spiritual journey of discovery. Until next time, keep faith in your heart and wisdom in your spiritual practices.